Well. Oh, goodness gracious. So good to see everybody. Welcome back to Gabbing in the Games. I appreciate you being here. I was a little out the last couple of weeks. I had the flu. And then I also have been adjusting to a new sleep schedule because I got this CPAP machine for people like myself with sleep apnea. Yeah, I'm an old man. Fuck you. But it's been good. And I think you'll see a lot more frequency on the channel now that I'm starting to get my, boy, I'll tell you, that sleep, man. You miss that sleep, it fucks you. It fucks you fucking bad. Hello, Mike Warner in the chat. But I'm feeling better. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad you're here with me. Good to see everybody. Okay, so listen, we'll be back tomorrow with a regular week of shows and videos and whatnot. But today is kind of like a training wheels back because it's been a couple of weeks since we've done a full-on episode. I want to welcome all the people in the chat. I want to welcome the members, of course. It's always good to see JoJo D and Mutant Mo and Ravnos and Mikey Warner and everybody else. I think I saw even Robert the Moderate in here earlier. Now, real quick, we're not going to forget, right now, Ravnos and Brett Moore are on the wheel for the Leadus Podcast PSN gift card. We will be finishing up filling out the wheel the rest of the week, and we will be giving this away come Friday. So stick around if you want to win some ducats to buy shit. And if you don't have a PS, if you don't have a PlayStation, I'll make it an Xbox card or a fucking Valve, whatever the fuck you want. The last thing before we get started, I just want to play you this. You have to have heard it, and if you haven't, boy, I hope you have. Let me got some refreshing that screen. Listen to this. Tell me if you know who this is.
Speaking of mods, a pattern kept emerging.
Hey, come back now. Come back now. Come on now. Here we go. Tell me who this is.
Other mods and requests, a pattern kept emerging. Things like Sex Lab Framework and Ostem Framework, among other projects focusing on the more carnal aspects that we never thoroughly explored before in the Elder Scrolls series. We at Bethesda understand that our players want to see females having the CBBE, big fat cow body type. We understand that sometimes you just want to turn into a werewolf and ravage that hot NPC you got from a modding website. We understand that sometimes after a long and arduous adventure, you just feel the need to pump that NPC full of baby batter.
So, yeah, it's AI, of course, but this is, it's not bad. That's Todd Howard. Via a deep fake audio talking about how Elder Scrolls 6 will let you have sex with the NPCs. Now, this is funny, and I like it, but boy, I'll tell you, we're getting into a world of trouble. We are sailing our ship into the crashing fucking rocks, man. This is going to be very weird for society. We are going to be talking a little bit more. I have some fascinating video game AI development to show you later in the show, but I had to kick it off with that because come on now. I mean, how great. It sounds just like Todd Howard. It sounds just like fucking Todd Howard. All right, listen, I know there've been a lot of games coming out recently. I want to tell you what I've been playing because I'm just in love with some of this shit. Wild Hearts dropped a couple of days ago. I've been playing it nonstop. So much fun. I need to go back and finish Hi-Fi Rush, and I need to go back and finish Dead Space. I'm very close to the end of both of those games. But this came along and clobbered me. It's so fun. And the battles with these fucking monsters are so big and so dramatic. Now, I know the Monster Hunter fans are, they don't like it. They don't fucking like it. And I get it. I'm not even taking the piss. I get it. I get that if you have been totally in on a franchise, especially a game that created the franchise or a genre, and then this sort of ne'er-do-well comes, traipsing into your room, you're like, what the fuck? Now you're into this, Jaffe? Now you're into this world? And it's not like Monster Hunter is some small thing. It's a massive success for Capcom. Huge hit all over the world, especially in Japan. But I've tried to play Monster Hunter before, not for very long, like 10 minutes, and it was slow, and it was a lot of reading, and I was like, fuck this, I don't give a fuck. And I put it down, I moved on with my life. For whatever reason, these guys that made Wild Heart said, okay, we're gonna do what Blizzard does with a game that's huge like Magic the Gathering, but we're gonna kind of cut off some of the rough edges and make it a little bit more welcoming. And that's what they've done. And they've also added, my understanding, to the formula some really cool, I know it sounds dumb, but it's really cool Fortnite style building that you can use to build devices on the battlefield to attack the monsters. I just unlocked the one today that builds this tower with this massive kind of hammer, right? And all it is you just kind of build it super fast, super intuitive, and then you're fighting these massive Goliath monsters, and suddenly it just springs out this fucking mallet and slams the fucker in the head. You can go in for the kill. It's great. I will tell you this is fascinating to me. So, and I don't know if it's probably not gonna change anything. I don't know. But coming off of Dead Space and Hi-Fi Rush, which are delightful and wonderful and linear for the most, within reason. It's not like it's straight up linear like Evil West, but it's Dead Space is Dead Space. It is so, when you play those games back to back, it is so evident why a lot of people like the games in the PS3 generation better. It doesn't mean that today's games aren't great. They're great. But Dead Space and Dead Space and Hi-Fi Rush take you by the hand, and it's like, okay, we showed you cool stuff in Chapter 4. Chapter 5's totally different. It's built on the stuff in Chapter 4, but we've handcrafted something that we think will keep you entertained, right? You jump over to Wild Hearts or any game like it, which is 95% of the games today, including the first-party Sony stuff, which is great with their narratives and all that, but they're so systems heavy these days that you, in comparison to those older games, you can just see the thematic fall away, and it's all about the loops, and it's all about the numbers, and it's all about sort of making your brain feel good when you've leveled up or when you've unlocked this, or when you're like, I'm going to just grind for 2 more hours and I'm going to get the little tchotchke. So much of the heavy lifting now is done on the part of the player in today's designs. They just build these great loops in, these addictive loops, and then they stand back and they put a bunch of production value on it, and they go, go have fun, make your own fucking fun in your brain. I like them, but compared directly to a Dead Space remake or Hi-Fi Rush, I don't like them as much. And I'm still telling you, I'm loving Wild Hearts. Adam, buddy, welcome to Diet Soda Soldiers. I think you've been a member before, but regardless, whether you have or you have not, I appreciate you being back or being here for the first time. Everybody, welcome Adam, who has decided to pony up the ducats and say, Jaffe, I like the cut of your jib, you old sons of bitch. Fuck you, Rob the Mod. Rob the Mod is in the chat telling people I lost all of the Marvel Snap games. Bitch, I lost like 1 or 2 to you. I will fucking take you on at the end of the stream if I have the energy for it, you little fuck. Wild Hearts is what old school monster people did. It challenged people. I'm not finding it so far, Zarth, for that challenging. I'm finding it quite not easy, but it's doable. Like, I don't feel like it's Elden Ring or anything like that. Ravno says, I have seen the game bogging down in slow motion on PS5, which is weird. I mean, yeah, man, I don't really care about that stuff. It's clearly not a beautiful game compared to other games that are out there, but I don't care. I mean, would it be nice? It definitely feels like late PS4 Pro game in terms of visual and execution, and even the load screens. Like, the load times are not very good, even on PS5 and Xbox. You're like, what the fuck is this? But it's all that aside, it's enough to get me super, super jazzed, and I'm loving it right now. Rogue Radical says gamers can be so tribalistic with brands. I know, it's annoying. I love Twisted and Car Combat, but I still enjoyed Vigilante 8 as well. Me too. There's room for Monster Hunter and Wild Hearts in the same space for everyone. Absolutely. Absolutely, Rogue Radical. I think, honestly, I don't want to go back and play Monster Hunter because it feels, again, I've never heard that Capcom's done anything to streamline it, but I can tell you that now I at least kind of sort of get the fervor over this genre. Obviously, I've been playing a lot of Marvel Snap. Marvel Snap is like a fucking precision-made watch. These guys, and it's headed up, by Ben Brode, who did Hearthstone. I was telling some people I was playing with on the Discord the other night, it is so, I don't know if it's true, but it seems so clear that they studied everything about Hearthstone and they fixed everything. Everything from it was designed from the ground up to play on a phone when Hearthstone wasn't. The loops, here's what's fascinating about this game. So I pay $9 a month for it, basically, and a little more, give or take, if there's something cool I want. I don't love, but I am happy to pay my $9 a month for the new season passes, because everything else it does in the 29 days before the season or while the season is running is delightful. It doesn't ping me with fucking microtransactions all day long. There's a lot of little mini loops in the systems. Like if you start getting bored of this thing appears for you to chase, right? Or if you seem like you're kind of getting really frustrated with the section, they put in a new section that occurs a lot more often. Like there's a real sense of a puppet master behind this thing, keeping players engaged. I'm loving it. Marvel Snap, their new season, which is all the Quantumania stuff, just launched. Ant-Man, Wasp, MODOK, all that shit. The last thing I'll tell you briefly, I know a lot of you, I don't even care. I love all games, whether they're big games, small games, mobile games. Tomb Raider Reloaded. We talked in the last stream about Apple Arcade, which is the $4.99 service that gives you all the games without any of the microtransactions. Not all the games, but they have, originals and exclusives and other kinds of games. No microtransactions, no ads, none of that. And it really basically, it's funny. People are like, Sony should make another handheld. Maybe they should. But if you're a gamer and you're poo-pooing mobile games, especially when you can play them through Apple Arcade or Netflix, and Netflix now, if you have Netflix on your phone, you just get a bunch of fucking free games that have all the microtransactions stripped out, all the ads stripped out. So Tomb Raider Reloaded just dropped this week. And it's basically a blend of like Loaded and Vampire Survivors and Robotron and a couple other, weird kind of things. It's really fun. But if you play it outside of the Netflix ecosystem, it is a microtransaction disaster. It can go fuck itself with a fucking rusty screwdriver, okay? But if you play it via Netflix, and all you have to do is subscribe to Netflix in general, and it just comes with the system, all that's gone. And it's a really fucking addictive, fun game that I highly recommend if you're looking for something to do on the toilet and it's not Marvel Snap, which is the ultimate toilet game. So I'm playing Wild Hearts, Marvel Snap, Tomb Raider right now. Obviously, there's tons of good games coming. I cannot wait for the remake of Resident Evil. But for now, that's what I've been doing. A cab wants us to know that Jaffe says, I've been in Hogwarts the past week. It's magical. Hope the game never ends. Everybody who is playing that game tells me it's great. Every single fucking person who is playing that game says it's fantastic. Okay. Ravenous says it's more than likely I'll buy a Wild Hearts as soon as its first discount, even if it's only $20. Yeah. I mean, again, if you have Game Pass, you can get if you have Game Pass Ultimate, you can play 10 hours of it for free right now. It's possible it's going to be coming to EA Play. I don't fucking know. But it's good stuff. It's really, really good stuff. Okay. Hello, Danny Sullivan wants us all to know he's drunk. Good for you, sir. Good for you. All right. I do want to let you know, you got to have heard this, but if not, free PlayStation Plus online. You only got a couple hours left, but if you've been jonesing to play some PlayStation games with your friends, all that's free up until midnight tonight. So you can play Call of Duty online. You can play Mortal Kombat, whatever the fuck you want to play. And that's happening. I just wanted to point it out. Wanted to point it out. Yeah, people in the chat, a lot of people are liking the Harry Potter game, or the whatever, the what's it called? The Hogwarts Legacy game. That's, you know, I'm not a Harry Potter guy, man. I even went to when I went to Universal Halloween Horror Nights and we went to the Harry Potter land, I was just like, you know, yeah, that thing has to have hit you probably at a perfect age, that you really were kind of able to take it in. For me, I was not really that into it. Jaffe, do you think PlayStation should let other players play online for free, says Kyler Williams? Well, I mean, it would be nice if they could, but, you know, I mean, whether they just want to make money, which I'm sure they do, they're a company, or whether they have to because it's expensive to keep all that shit running, I couldn't tell you. Listen to this. This is my next game I'm buying. Diablo 4, they announced early access March 17th. Open beta March 24th. So if you buy the early access, and you can buy the base version, which is what I'm buying for $70. I don't know if I'm going to get it on PC or PlayStation yet, but or maybe I'll fucking wait if the deal goes through, but I'll probably buy it. But you get early access next month for the final game that I think is coming out in, what is it coming out in June? Yeah, it's coming out this June. Both of these early access open betas and one's closed, one's open if you don't have the game. Well, according to Blizzard, gives you a deep look into the early game, including the prologue and the entirety of Act 1. And you'll have a 25 level cap. So I loved Diablo 3. I loved Diablo Immortal. And so I'm very much looking forward to this. And I'm sure you've seen the new release trailer. I'll talk to you guys about trailers in a minute. This is coming from Eurogamer. The full price game has paid cosmetics, live service elements, including a regular season pass, hits the 6th of June. I don't really mind that. I really don't care. I mean, I let's put it this way. I enjoyed the shit out of Diablo Immortal, right? And, you know, so fuck. If I love that and that was straight up free to play, I have a feeling that I'll love this as well. Ravnos wants you to know you also loved Elden Ring and Midnight Suns. You didn't finish them. Yeah, I didn't. And you know what? I'm going to tell you guys something. I have gotten over I used to feel like I had to push back on people who were like, Jeffy, you never finish games. And then it hit me. I play more games. It's like I should be the one that you guys fucking aspire to be, not the other way around. I play more games than most of you motherfuckers even know about. I played 60 fucking demos on Steam Next Fest last week. How many did you guys play? Probably none. I got my ear to the train track, my finger on the pulse of what's coming down the line for game design, video games, things like that. Oh, but I finished a fucking game. Fuck you. Wayne B, fuck you. Wayne B says, nope, finish your games. No, fuck you. Man, there's kids in China that don't have games. You need to finish your plate. No, fuck you. I play all kinds of shit, man. So fuck off. But that said, though, I do plan to finish Dead Space because, you know, I love it. And I love Hi-Fi Rush. Am I planning on Midnight Suns' new DLC? Probably not. Jeeves says, I played 1 million mobile games. Does that make me better than you? That doesn't make you better than me, no. But what I'm saying is the idea of there being some nobility or a stronger, not that this exists, but stronger street cred for being a gamer if you finish versus if you play a shit ton. I take issue with that definition. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm fucking saying. Jaffe, why can't you finish a game but play Marvel Snap in 1,000 hours? It's real simple. It's because I have a higher or a lower threshold for boredom than a lot of people do. Okay, so Marvel Snap is consistently introducing compelling, meaningful elements into the cake batter to make me go, ooh, I still like this. This is interesting, right? But if you play Elden Ring, which is probably my favorite game of all time, I have put in over 100 hours, and now I'm like, the only reason to finish Elden Ring for me right now is to say I finished it. And I don't really have that compulsion like a lot of people. Like, it means nothing to me to say that I finished a game, right? I don't get a sense of satisfaction or check or anything. So the only reason I'll stick with the game is if it is still compelling. And if it's not, go fuck off. I'm moving on with my goddamn life. I have things to do. I have games to play. Listen to this. Speaking of lots of games. Why would it not be, if you want to see the whole game, Dark Nugget? Because if I've gotten to a point in the game where I'm starting to see over and over and over the same sense of mechanics, what does finishing it mean? It just means that, I'm just going to play more of the same for another fucking hour, or more than that. What is the last boss I beat in Elden Ring? Ravnos, the boss I'm on right now. But again, if you've actually played Elden Ring, you know that the boss order isn't linear. So, it's not going to matter what I tell you. But the boss I'm fighting right now, I'm trying to level my character up to fight the guy, the massive troll in the snow that you go through the cave that has the barrier. And I've almost beaten him, but I said I'm going to chore my dude up for a little bit. And so now I'm fighting the dude with I think if I remember, he's got a big staff and he summons these two guys that are pretty easy to beat. I think they have like ice powers or whatever. I think they're like at the top of a castle in a snow section is who I'm fighting right now. And I've almost beaten him, and then I got distracted with these other games. Listen, speaking of tons of games, Bredder decides, says, what if a game gets worse or better? You'll never know. You're right. But as a guy who's been playing games since the first fucking Boot Hill in 1975, more often than not, a game doesn't get better or worse. It just kind of stays the same if it starts to get boring. You might miss a bit here or a bit there, but I would rather miss that and have an experience of knowing about 3 brand new games than just going, I finished this. Jeffy, were you annoyed by the conversations in Midnight Suns? No, I fucking loved it. I loved the role playing and the visual novel aspect of Marvel Suns. I loved that. I loved the combat. I love exploring around the Abbey. I think the whole fucking thing is just a weird fucking alchemy that if a designer came to me and showed me that on a piece of paper, I would go, this is cool, but this isn't going to work. And it goddamn does work if you're open-minded to it. I loved it. I don't have fear of missing out, Doug. I don't know why it's a thing for, wait, we're going to move on. Okay. Okay. Right. Jay Spinna, that's a great point. Games are long to justify the $70 price point. That's another reason, is that I've made the sausage. I know how the sausage is made. A lot of times when I play something and it's like, really? This didn't need to be here. Here's what I'll tell you. I was thinking about this. This is what I think they should do. And it wouldn't take that much. I was actually surprised, by the way, because I figured for all the money they spent on God of War 2018 and God of War Ragnarok, especially Ragnarok, that was going to be on PS5 and PS4, I figured what they would do is say, okay, let's have a small 10-man team that will focus on PS4, and we're not going to have to put many or any of the limits on the PS5 version. We have this like skeleton crew to go off and say, okay, let's put a little, squeeze your way through a couple of boulders for load times. We don't need that on the PS5. So we'll build the game we want, and it'll be the skeleton crew on the PS4 that's there to kind of figure out a way to make it work. Well, similarly, if somebody said, look, all these big fucking games that don't need to be this big, everything from Assassin's Creed games to God of War to Last of Us Part 2, and they're like, okay, we understand there's a number of gamers that demand a level of hours per play per value. The director's cut is like 8 to 12 hours. We're still going to make God of War Ragnarok as shipped, and that will be sort of the game. But if you want to just play it for the director's vision, the team's vision, don't tell me that fucking team thinks God of War Ragnarok should have been as long as it is. Don't tell me that. That's horse shit. That is horse shit. Tim Duncan says, would you value someone's opinion on a film if they watch the movie till they get bored? Yes. Yes. It's Tim Duncan. It's different though. It's not, you know what? Fuck you, Tim Duncan. I know more about game design than you do. He says it's just a ridiculous take. No, what's ridiculous is you coming to my show acting as if you fucking know more than I do about an industry I was in for over 20 years. Okay? Let me explain it to you. Here's the difference between a movie and a game. Okay? A movie is designed to work from beginning to end for 2 hours, to give or take 90 minutes to 2.5 hours. That's it. It fails if you get up and walk out. Okay? The reason the movie works is that it builds itself to the business model. The theater owners say, look, we need to show so many movies per day to make our money. So your movies mostly can't be 4-hour epics, right? Save that for the TV show. Okay, so the business model drives both of these things. But video games, unlike movies, when a movie is boring, they cut the shit out of it. They edit it. They pick up the pacing. They do reshoots. When a video game is boring, they don't care for the most part, right? Because they've got the $70, and if you get bored here, you can go explore somewhere else on the map. Or it's less about, by the time you get to the mid-game and end-game, it's less about the gamer needing to see the end like a movie and more about just going, are they enjoying the core loops enough that maybe enough of them will finish it? That's why most games don't have a 50% in rate, completion rate. You don't know what you're talking about. Tired of that shit too. All right, let's talk about video games with E3. E3, you know, look at this guy. Who did I just insult? I don't fucking know. Who was he? I'm tired of it. I'm too fucking old to give a fuck about and not push back on people like Tim Duncan. I don't mean to be a dick to you, Tim Duncan. I don't mean to be a dick to you. I read your whole statement. What do you got, a fucking Unabomber manifesto? It says, would you value someone's opinion on a film if they watched the movie until they got bored saying it's one of their favorite movies ever? There's so much loaded in there. Number one is movies and games are very different when it comes to this issue specifically. And more importantly, who gives a shit if you value my opinion? I don't care. What do I get if I know Tim Duncan, little Timmy Duncan from Connecticut, values my opinion about Elden Ring? Who gives a shit? Jesus Christ. Okay. When you made the original God of War, Benji M says, did y'all put anything in that the team didn't want? I mean, you would have to assume yes, because it was a big team for the time. But you know, I didn't. I was quite happy with it. Okay. E3. Ubisoft made this weird statement the other day. They said they were on their earnings call, and Yves Guillemot said, if E3 happens, we'll be there and have a lot of things to show. And that obviously sent a lot of people into the hubbub, what in the fuck is going on? E3 releases a statement saying, hey, this is coming from Reed Pop, spokesman at Reed Pop, who's organizing the whole thing. As they also do PAX. As we have confirmed, exhibitors, we are eager to share more as details get cemented and participants ready their own detailed plans. In other parts of the Reed Pop gaming portfolio, we rarely release participants in the shows until close to the event, but now we'll adjust our style to the E3 way as we can. More news is expected in the weeks ahead. Whatever. You know, end of the day, no. I don't think E3 is... You know, I don't want to get it. We've talked about it, talked it to death. E3 is over. E3 is absolutely fucking over. unless they bring it back like a PAX show, then that would be great. I would love for them to do that. But E3 as defined, the fact that the only people talking about it and like, hey, we have a lot of things to show is Ubisoft, tells you all you need to know. Microsoft will be showing stuff down the street, but why do you even need it? Why do you even need it? One Winged Angel says, as much nostalgia as I have for G4 and E3, the fact of the matter is it's antiquated and doesn't have a place anymore. Absolutely, 100%. Eddie T, thank you, buddy. Been a member for Gods of War for almost, goddamn, we're going on 3 years, baby. You know I appreciate that, sir. He says, Legend of Dragoon is coming to PS5. Now, let me make sure I understand this. They're releasing it as a part of PS Plus Premium, the classics game. It's not like they're doing a remaster, right? It's just it's being available to play if you subscribe to the highest tier, correct? Legend of Dragoon is coming, says Eddie T. If it sells well, do you think Sony will finally give us a sequel after waiting more than 20 years? Fans plan on buying it despite it being on Plus Premium. So you're saying you can buy it, but you also can just play it for free. Okay. Well, yeah. Fuck yeah. Absolutely. I mean, if the thing sells like hotcakes, then of course Sony will go, huh, interesting. But I never did sell like hotcakes, at least over here. I don't think it's going to become this thing that bubbles up and becomes the next new phenomenon is what I would say. In a 3-part series, says Lord Vliger, on YouTube a few months ago, Jaffe mentions the new Twisted wouldn't work because there are so many factions of fans. None of them would be satiated no matter what was done with the game. Well, I didn't say it wouldn't work because of that. I said that that's going to be a real problem that you're going to have with it. And I think there, but to be fair, to kind of twist that statement a little bit, Twisted Metal every day has fewer and fewer and fewer fans. So it's not like you're going to be making a new iteration to a game that's currently almost at the top of its popularity. I mean, Twisted Metal at this point, there's tons of gamers who are like, what the fuck is Twisted Metal? Right? They don't even know what the fuck it is. So I think you'll have enough good faith with enough gamers that have no baggage that they'll be willing to explore the new one, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, without that sense of grr, it's about story, or grr, it's about multiplayer, blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's a totally different thing. But we'll talk about it in a little bit. Jay says E3 costs companies so much money to show off a game when they can just drop it on social media. Right. I mean, same thing with PSX. Remember the thing they did in Vegas that was like the big PlayStation show? It was a lot of fun. But why spend the money? It's just, look how much money they're making right now. They don't need to do it. And so I don't think they will. I want to let you know about this. This is happening today or tomorrow. IGN did their Fan Fest or whatever it was called. There are so many cool video game trailers coming out that have dropped at that fest for games coming out that I'm just going to do a whole pot and let's watch video game trailers stream. It may be tonight or it might be tomorrow, but it'll be in the next 48 hours for sure. I'll hit you up on Twitter when it's going live, but there's a lot of good stuff to fucking watch that dropped this weekend. So I have intentionally not watched any of it. I didn't see the Diablo thing. I didn't see the 15 minutes of Atomic Heart. I just want to smoke some pot, eat some pizza, and watch trailers with you guys. So that's coming up tonight or tomorrow. I'll give you a heads up when it's about to start. Lords, regarding Twisted Metal, he says, fair point, although I do feel Twisted has been on a plateau of fans, purely anecdotal and only from what I've seen in fan groups. Well, when you say been on a plateau, what does that mean? It certainly hasn't grown. Certainly fucking hasn't grown. That's for goddamn sure. Heads up, an interesting month and a good month for the PlayStation Plus. Speaking of game catalog, we got Outriders, which was, let me tell you something about Outriders. Outriders as a game was good. Solid game. I played it for, again, this is the value of me playing lots of things. Did I finish it? No, I didn't. But so what? But I played it for about 10 hours. I moved on with my fucking life. But what I will tell you is the game itself is solid. The story's really good though. So this, even if you just play it for the first couple hours of the story is really twisty and turny and good. Obviously, Resident Evil Biohazard is one of the best ones ever made. I like the first-person RE games. The Quarry is really good. Not as good as Until Dawn, but it's really fun. Played that with the Gavin Games members. Borderlands 3, people say is great. Scarlet Nexus is a acquired taste. The one that's the big one is obviously Horizon Forbidden West. That's good. It's great for the service. It does make you wonder. Is this, what's the impetus here? Is it Sony looking at Game Pass and going, okay, we know we're never going to be able to go day and date with big games, but we've got to bring that window in. So I've seen some people speculating it means it didn't sell that well. I don't think that's the case. Is it that they want to help promote Call of the Wild for the VR Horizon? I'm not entirely sure the main reason it's there. I would like to believe Sony is planting a flag and saying, look, our big games will be on this service within a year. So I don't know if that's what they're saying, but boy, that would be great for their service. I would love, or it could, Piotrek says maybe it means DLC is coming. Could be that as well. Right. So Shopperette says Resi 7 and Horizon, maybe it's they want PSVR2 promotion. Yeah, there's a lot of different theories, but I do think it's great. I do think it's great that it is on the service. I'd like to see some of their other fucking games on the service soon. We'll see. All right, speaking of other games like I want to see on the service, like sooner than later, God of War Ragnarok. Okay, Ravno says they are saying do not buy our first-party games at launch, and some will not. Great. I'm so tired of that being a talking point. Great, Ravnos. Great. Just like I'm not going to see Quantumania. Alex S. is asking Ravnos, he says, if Quantumania is not on your radar, can you please explain why? Yeah, because I'm waiting for it to come to Disney Plus. Because I've been trained that that's how that works. And it's not, from the reviews, it's not offering enough for me to get out of the house and spend the extra money and go. I'd rather have my weekends to do other things, like play games I never finish. But yeah, that's the reason. So in this case, I think if a gamer gets a PlayStation and they're like, dude, most gamers are not like you and me, you and I, all of us, right? Most gamers, you get the box and it's like, shit, look at all this shit on PS Plus I never played. They're not like, I have to play the newest game today, right? So I think it's great. I'd love to see Sony start saying, hey, depending on the game, between 6 months and 14 months, it'll be there. I'd love to see that. But yes, gamers do not owe developers or publishers a sale. That's exactly right. Okay. But anyway, that's coming. Let's talk about God of War, though. This was interesting. I had a bit of a, I want to see Cocaine Bear. And then I learned Cocaine Bear, a cab, was directed by Elizabeth Banks. I'm like, oh shit, this is a real movie. I want to see this. So I would have had a different response to this, but there was a news story from that Min Max show. I don't like those guys. They don't like me. Well, maybe one of the guys is okay, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But listen, they're on the show, and two of their head writers were talking about the script and the story for God of War Ragnarok. And I'll read you a little bit of the story first, and I'll tell you my thoughts. It's from Video Games Chronicle. Kratos, and these are spoilers for Ragnarok. So if you haven't played it yet, tough, or turn down the volume for a few seconds. So Kratos doesn't die in the game. The writers were asked if they were ever plans to actually kill him off. And this is what I guess Matt Sophos, I don't know how you say his name. He says there was the earliest draft of an outline that we had come up with that we took to Eric, the director, revealing in this draft Kratos died in the Thor fight at the very beginning of the game. He continued, and so he was going to die, and then it wasn't a permanent death. What was going to happen he would get pulled out of hell essentially by Atreus. 20 years have passed. It was going to be a big time jump. And then Atreus was going to go into hell to bring his papa back, right? And then Eric eventually shut it down. He's like, I don't want to do that. Kratos has died and come back from it too many times. It feels a little bit too, oh, you said he was going to die and you just killed him, but he came right back. Okay. So what's interesting to me about this is I really like this. And my first reaction to this was, that's really cool. I would not have seen him dying in the first boss battle. And I certainly wouldn't have seen a 20-year jump and suddenly there's a part of the game that becomes about Kratos being pulled out of hell. And I was like, that's cool. But then when I saw Eric's explanation, I was like, yeah, he's right. But the more I thought about it, I don't know. I mean, that's the kind of shit I was hoping for. I like stuff that really just twists and turns it. Like even if Kratos would have died and the little head, what Mimir is like, well, he should have come out by now. He's crawled out of hell many times. And then eventually after 20 years, he doesn't come back. Atreus is like, something's wrong. I have to go get my dad. So they play to the assumption of like, well, yeah, he always climbs out of hell. And then it turns out he's in the afterlife and he's reuniting with his other kid and his wife. And he's like, I don't want to leave. Right? I mean, you could have done something with it. You could have, I'm not saying they picked a bad story. I'm just saying that that's interesting. I wouldn't have just been like, nope, let's not do that. I would have been like, there's enough meat on that bone of like, ooh, I didn't see that coming, that we should play around with that a little bit. I like it. But anyway, it went with, they went with what they went with, what a lot of people love. I think it's the best game of the year. And I think that's great as well. I don't think anybody ever thought he was going to die for good. Michael O'Connor says it amazes me people thought he was really going to die for good. No, any more than they're going to make a mainline Uncharted game without Nathan Drake. They're not going to kill off their fucking cash cow. It's ridiculous. But in the story, they could. I mean, hell, you know what they could have done? If it was me, if I was Big Bad Jim Ryan, I would have been like, I would have done that kind of story that I just told you based on the Sophos and his writers. And then I would have done post-launch free DLC of like a 4-hour game telling the story of Kratos when he did die and how he ended up where he is at the beginning of Ragnarok, right? So you could have been like, okay, we're not going to give you a full God of War day one drop because we can't afford to, but we'll give you this if you're PlayStation Premium. Come on now. Do you think Eric really shot it down, says Benji, or was Sony interfering? No, I don't. I think if Sony, if Eric and them would have said, we're going to kill Kratos in the first 5 minutes and he's never coming back in this game, they would have said, well, I don't think we can do that. But that's not what the story was. I mean, Eric had a really good point. And Eric's a smart guy, and Eric probably thought through it more than I did and go, yeah, it's not a good thing. I wasn't, but here's what I'll tell you. Okay, this is what I'll tell you about this. So much, God of War 2018 was great, up and down the charts. No complaints other than the map and a couple other things. But it was also great because it was so unexpected and so fresh and so unique to the formula that I was always like, a sequel is going to have to do something to also kind of give it a spin or feel fresh, because otherwise, if you just take the story of God of War 2018 at face value, I mean, it's fine, but I don't know, maybe you guys were, but I wasn't like, oh my God, I can't wait to see what happens to Atreus. This is like with the end of Empire Strikes Back. What's going to happen to Han Solo? Right? I was just like, I mean, I was excited to play it, but I wasn't like, I need to know what happens. What do you think is going to happen? You know, and I think Ragnarok kind of followed a very not easy path. It was a lot of work to write a game as good as that game is written, but a very safe, expected path. And I think this would have felt a little more have a little more heat to it, I suppose. Okay. I would have killed Kratos as Ravnos, though not the way the others think. I would have killed him to start a whole new cycle. If Kratos died in the beginning, says Jay, people would have been rage quit the game thinking it was The Last of Us Part 2. I think you could do something to make it clear your expectations were being played with, though. Okay, if Corey would have been in charge, how much different would the story have been, says Ricardo? I have no idea. I have no idea. Okay. Daxter, thank you for the super chat, buddy. I appreciate it. He says, what is your perfect game, Jaffe? What game is something that would be your favorite, and what game now gets close to that, even though you did not, to that? Also, what did you not like about Twisted Metal? Yeah, to finish up the God of War chat, Eddie Torres says, that's what Ragnarok was disappointing to me. It was exactly what I expected. No big surprises or evolution. Right. DLC. Come on now. I'm just taking the piss. Okay, that's a real tough question because it depends on my mood. My perfect game, like if you just look at game as some kind of systems-based thing, is probably something like Hearthstone or Marvel Snap or Monster Train, something that's just very simple but very deep. But if you're talking about more like an experiential game, probably my most favorite experiential game of recent years is probably Elden Ring. Would probably be Elden Ring. As for what I didn't like about Twisted Metal, I mean, it was a hard series to make at times, but I loved tons of. I had a lot of control with Scott on that game. It wasn't like if there was something in it. I mean, the one thing I hated most about Twisted Metal was I couldn't find a way, and I blame myself, to pull the racing out of Twisted Metal 3 or Twisted Metal PS3, which I just thought was terrible. Just abhorrently stupid decision to keep that in. All right, let's move forward. The other thing I'll tell you, this was interesting too about God of War. We'll get to Twisted Metal in just a second, right? In fact, it's the next story up. Well, they didn't make, Daxter says, I'm sorry they made you keep racing in. They didn't make me keep racing in. What it was is racing was put in at no request of mine or Scott's, by at least my understanding of the story, because I wasn't out in Utah, by a just blisteringly talented online programmer and lead programmer and owned part of the company. He was a big deal in the whole Twisted Metal life. And I guess he just kind of put it in on his own. And it was, it's fine, but not really compared to what gamers were used to. But that was one of the issues when people were like, I'm like, I need to leave the company after the game. Well, why? It's just creative differences. It wasn't that we didn't like each other, but those guys, they didn't play a lot of games. They were more mobile game guys at this point in their play careers. And so to them, the racing was cool. I'm like, yeah, but look at where the racing is, what people have expectations right now in 2012. This doesn't come close to cutting it. But because they didn't have that frame of reference as much, they were okay with it. And it would have been a big political nightmare that would have really, I believe, upset that programmer to pull it out. And because he was so instrumental to the net code being as great as it was, I don't mean the connection code, that wasn't him. The net code being as great as it was, I was just like, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Trixie, hello, Trixie. Trixie, thank you for the super chat. Trixie says, hey, I've been following Jaffe since the Dark Past from Twisted Twisted Edition. Thanks, buddy. Love what you do. Keep it up. I try to catch your streams every once in a while. Trixie, I very much appreciate the super chat. More importantly, I appreciate you hanging out with us and being here and watching all the stuff we've done. I love that you played Extra Twisted Edition. That was a lot of fun to work on. Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, buddy, for that. Okay, I want to talk about one more God of War thing that hit the news this week. This I thought was so interesting. So this is a headline from Games Radar. One of God of War Ragnarok's most annoying features was a total oversight. And they're talking about the tendency for the NPCs to solve the puzzles for you within seconds of walking into the room where the puzzle is. And it's like, dude, what the fuck? Like, you will literally walk into rooms, and before you can even get your bearings, Atreus is like, gee, Dad, maybe you should use your axe to bounce the light on, whatever the fuck he's doing. And it's like, oh my God, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Well, here's this what I think happened. So they were talking about, this is again to that interview on MinMax, with Matty Sophus and Richard Gaubert, who is the story lead, Gaubert. Sophus reveres the developers didn't get feedback that the characters talking too much until Ragnarok shipped. The two writers agree that this was a bit of an oversight, but there wasn't really anything they could do about it, and they're not sure if Sony Santa Monica could adjust with the patch. If a player gets stuck in a particular place, Sophus says, the cheapest solution, meaning it's quick and easy and doesn't cost a lot, is for the dev to chunk in a few voice lines from a character to help them. This is probably how we ended up with so many puzzle solutions coming from companions. So what probably happened, fucking happened, was when we would sit in focus test, and particularly God of War 1 and 2, back in the day, you would see when people got stuck, right? Now, first off, a lot of the games today, they never want you to get stuck in any kind of real way. Which, I always tell the story of I sat in this focus test with these guys, like 4 guys, and they were doing the part in God of War 1 where you're balancing above the Hades chamber that the statue rises and all that shit. And it went on for like 3 hours. And I'm sitting there taking notes, just like, okay, fix this. This is terrible. We're fucked, blah, blah, blah. And when it was done, they all rated it a 9 out of 10. And I went to them, I said, I don't understand. And they're like, oh, it was awesome. It felt great once we solved it. Okay. Different times, though. A puzzle in a game as expensive as God of War Ragnarok or Uncharted or whatever, they're not going to let you swing in the wind for that long because they don't want people to put it down and sell it back, blah, blah, blah. Okay, whatever. But what probably happened here, though, is they were watching focus testers, and every time somebody got stuck beyond a threshold that, let's say it was Eric making the call that was comfortable with, he said, let's solve it. Let's solve it. Let's solve it. But I bet they just weren't tracking all those let's solve it's, and they add up, and they wouldn't have noticed. Eric wouldn't have noticed on his playthrough because when he's playing it or the testers are playing it, they know how to solve the puzzle. So they never would have triggered the logic that says, okay, it's now time to play one of these voices. But in that, probably what happened was they kind of forgot that they had put in 30 of these fucking cheap solutions, and it just came fast and furious. It was terrible. It was bad. It was bad. I did not like that part of the game at all. It was super annoying. Okay. All right. Let's talk a little bit about good old Sweet Tooth. I saw some people in the chat saying, hey, Jaffe, what's up with the show? I don't know. I mean, I know it's done being filmed. I know it's in post. I know that PlayStation Studios, that is on a great fucking roll, and I hope this continues it, has sort of hinted that we'll be seeing some Twisted Metal TV stuff soon. I have seen nothing. I have not talked to them in 5-6 months. I don't know where it is, but I'm sure it's, moving right along. And I'm excited to see it. Peacock, by the way, when they first announced it was going to be on Peacock, I was like, I guess, well, if they're the only people willing to fund it, fuck it. But ultimately, Peacock has actually become pretty fucking good over the last couple of months. I don't know why this does this. Let me turn this off for the moment. Peacock has become pretty fucking good over the last couple of months. And so now I'm like, ooh, cool, it'll be on Peacock. But regardless, though, we'll see how it goes. But what I can tell you, even though Sony hasn't announced it, even though it wasn't announced, I know they're making a game. I don't know if it's true that it's Fire Sprite or whatever, but I know a game is being made. And even if I had details, which I don't, I wouldn't share them with you. But I can tell you, yeah, they're making a game. That's all I know, right? So I don't know. My guess is it's going to be based to some degree off the TV show. I'm assuming it's going to be a games as a service game, because that's kind of what, I mean, I can't fathom a world in which Jimmy Ryan says, hey, here's $180 million, go reinvent Twisted Metal with a narrative and storytelling, and single player is the heart and soul of it. I think they're like, look, we need to get into the service games industry, although now it's kind of getting shaky. We'll see what happens, but not for Sony, but just all these games are shutting down. I think they've kind of reached the point of too many games, not enough players. But anyway, I'm sure there's a service-based game. It'll be on PC, it'll be on PlayStation 5, and we'll see where it goes. Maybe it'll be on PS4, who knows? The reason it's in the news right now, though, the rumor has been that Firesprite, who are the guys who just put out the Call of the Wild, the VR Horizon game, there's a job listing, and I'll show it to you in a second, over on the Firesprite website, saying, hey, we're making a game in Unreal 5, which is cool. That will be the first time Twisted Metal was ever, all before, it's always been proprietary. It's going to be a fucking Unreal 5 game, which is great. The listing suggests, it says experience developing gameplay for VR would be useful. Now, again, they're not saying this is for Twisted Metal, but here's how they describe it. It's a bold project that aims to break new ground in multiplayer, blending gameplay mechanics in new ways and deeply embedding storytelling elements into a unique universe. It is suggested you may be able to control your character as well as your car, making a departure for the franchise. Here's how it starts to feel a little bit more Twisted Metal-y. If you look at the actual Firesprite career listing, it's for principal designer multiplayer action. Okay, here's what it says. The bold project aims to break new ground, blending genre-transcending gameplay mechanics around vehicular and on-foot combat. That's probably where they're getting it, because they're like, well, these guys are rumored to be making the Twisted game, and deeply embedding them into a unique gameplay environment as part of a unique and vibrant universe. We're building an elite first-party team. It's your opportunity to help shape a future blockbuster. And then they go into talking about a little bit of like, hey, VR and whatnot. So, the only thing that popped out to me, because like I said, I know they're fucking doing this game. Well, I don't know if they are, but I know it's being made, is the on-foot thing, man. This is, again, I don't have any ill will. I don't have a desire to work on this game. I don't be like, why didn't they call me? I don't give a fuck. I don't even know if I would have wanted to do it, but just a conversation. And maybe they wouldn't have listened, and that's fine. But what I can tell you is you can see the dangers of designing with the theme first and not the abstraction first. You can see it in Twisted Metal 2012 when we added a helicopter. We also added factions. Everybody hated that there weren't cars tied to drivers, right? And it was because I was like, oh, it's going to be so much cooler and modern if you see guys leaning out the windows. And that led to a whole production thing. And it was like, okay, we can only do that if we have factions. We can't afford to do that with every character, blah, blah, blah. And nobody liked flying. I'm like, but flying's so cool. It's like an action movie. That was the thematic leading the design. Getting out of the car, if you look at what they did in Destruction All-Stars that I thought was fun and I thought was incredibly well made, you can tell that there was no real reason to get out of the car in that game. It was like, we need to come up with a reason because it's cool. This is my Achilles heel in game design. I did the same thing with the fucking hand in Drawn to Death. I loved the idea of the hand coming down like God and affecting the universe, but it was a terrible implementation because I just shoved it in there, even though it didn't really belong, right? I think if they've got a great, and look, if they're making a single player game, it's different. But if they're making a multiplayer game where you get in or out of the car, I don't think that's automatically bad, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what this becomes with that. Because for me, if I was on a call with these guys, I would say, why is it happening at an abstract level? What do you really think you're going to get from a moment-to-moment gameplay aspect that makes this better? And then, oh, well, you can go collect better power-ups and bring them back to your car. You can absolutely come up with reasons to get the guy out of the car. I'm not saying you can't come up with those reasons, but is that good enough to break that rhythm, that cadence of just, I'm in my vehicle, these are my tools, I'm fighting, right? Do you really want to kind of have that moment where you separate from that? And can they make it feel fluid and part of the whole thing? I'm sure they can try. I'm sure they're going to, I'm not taking the piss. I'm just saying that when I saw this, I was like, it wasn't a red flag so much as it was like interesting. I wonder what's driving that decision, assuming this is even Twisted Metal. Right, it's interesting. Ravno says Twisted Metal Live would be like Grand Theft Auto Online with less things to do. Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's a really great point, right? Which is another reason Twisted Metal is kind of, what do you do with it? Is that, yeah, you've got Grand Theft Auto Online. You basically have Twisted Metal and everything else thrown in the kitchen sink, at which point you can try to compete with that, or you can say, we're going to hone in and focus. You know, you don't get out of the car in Gran Turismo either because we're focusing on the racing. We're going to make the car combat so interesting and accessible and rich and depth and deep and whatever. I don't know how to do that, by the way. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm saying that's another route you could have taken. But again, Michael Kaiser says hijacking other vehicles. It's not that you can't come up with things to do. And it's also not that there aren't thematically cool things. Hijacking a vehicle sounds great. But it's an idea. It's not a play mechanic, right? Like, what does it actually get you? That's all I'm saying. I mean, I'm not saying what I'm saying is deep game design, but it definitely is. It comes with experience to realize you design from abstraction first. You don't design with thematic first. Like even Cochrane says, if your car gets destroyed, you could steal another driver's car. I'm not saying that's good or bad. I don't know. But I think you have to look at it at an abstract level. Imagine playing Twisted Metal. Imagine having the battles back and forth. You almost die, you get health, you do this, you do that. And then you decide to eject from your car because it's about to explode. And then you're able to steal someone else's car, and suddenly the rounds become 2 or 3 times as long. Like at an abstraction level, is that good? Or does that feel, Dead or X says jump from a car to car, hijack it. You could do that in Destruction All-Stars. It was great. And then it wasn't. It was great to watch on a trailer, and then it was over. Nobody played the game. Anyway, all I'm saying is we'll see what happens. I guess what I'm offering is some insight into lessons learned by me for what they're worth the hard way, which is if you start thinking of it like one-off scenarios and you don't think about it as the pieces to the overall gameplay puzzle, you can get into a great deal of trouble. Kyler says, I would say Warhawk had some good vehicle combat and on foot combat. Right. But Warhawk wasn't about, combat with cars or vehicles. It was about, there was a meta mission. It was about, can you capture the flag? I forget what the 5 or 6 modes were. And if they're doing that, that could work great, but it wouldn't be traditional Twisted Metal. And that's probably fine too. But it's interesting to me. It's a very interesting design challenge. I'm curious where they end up with it. Let's talk about PSVR. PSVR2 gets in your hot little hands this week. Well, let me get to the chat because I know some of you guys have some thoughts. Has there been a car combat battle royale or extraction? I think Controller Sports, that GTA had a mode that was like battle royale, but I don't think there's been and there actually may have been like an indie thing that's in like early access, but nothing really major that's come along. Blades and Watches says the problem is the market is saturated with live service titles. For the new Twisted Metal to even stand a chance, it has to bring something unique. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, do you think Twisted can justify a $70 price point? I don't know what they're making, but I would hope it's going to be a free-to-play game. I don't know, though. But no, unless it's like a straight-up, single-player. Can you imagine? I mean, they tried to sell... Remember they were trying to sell Destruction All-Stars for $70 fucking dollars? You out of your goddamn mind? Idiot. Newtonian, thank you, buddy, for the super chat. He says, what if the game is built like For Honor, but vehicle and third-person combat? Not just making it fun, making a mini game within playing the game. I don't know what that means. Thank you for the super chat. I know what For Honor is, but are you saying that you're shooting people's cars and then there's this section where everybody's out of their cars and it's third-person melee combat? I mean... And then depending on how you play in that, it brings it back into the car combat. I definitely think if you're going to have these disparate ideas that don't fit, one of the solves that I have seen work and that I wish I would have done in Drawn to Death is put that mechanic in, but make it outside of the main core game. And then in between matches, have those games appear. And depending on how you play, you come into the next main match with an advantage or not, depending on how well you did in that sort of little sub game. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, but I mean, I think at this point, though, Newtonian, they need to have every single thing on the table. And I'm sure they do, because they know they've got to, this is a hard thing to skin, I think. Travis, did I not read Travis's? Travis, you were asking me something. I had it up on the screen. I lost it. I'm sorry. Did I get Travis's? Here it is. Wanted to say Twisted had one of the coolest front end menu systems. Oh, right. Well, so that came from a game I was working on called Dark Guns that never shipped. And Mark Anderson, who was who was our art director on that, as well as at Sony Santa Monica for a while, had that idea for, I think we called it at the time Earth Dies Screaming or Dark Guns or whatever. And you can see that online. I think the video is up online. And we loved it so much that even though that game was canceled, we were like, we have to use that. So that's kind of where it came from. What is the last good vehicle battle game? I don't know. I mean, the real problem is if you strip, think about it for a moment. Oh, fuck yes, JJD. We'll do Twisted Metal as a pot and popcorn. You goddamn right. Think about this for a moment. If you strip out the thematic and you ask yourself, if you were just going to make a game and you said, I don't care about cars or feet or whatever, it's a shooter. And you said, okay, I like the limitations that you get from being in a vehicle. Then you'd have to ask yourself, okay, well, what are the pluses that I get that make up for those limitations? Because there are so many other third-person, first-person shooters where you have so much more fidelity of motion on the part of the character. Climbing and ziplining and sliding and strafing and just in no acceleration. You're just moving instantly in the direction you're pushing the stick, right? That you would have to say, I want it to be a vehicle because of this, right? That you can't get, not just the limitations, and that's what I've always struggled with since the kind of novelty of it wore off. Mario Kart battle mode is absolutely great. But I'm trying to think. So if Mario Kart battle mode came out and it wasn't Mario, I'm just trying to think, like, what is it about battle mode? I mean, obviously the racing is the main course, but if you're talking about the battle mode as it relates to Twisted Metal, I mean, clearly that can hold up. It certainly doesn't hold up the way it used to. The racing still holds up great, but I don't find myself coming on to battle mode, or at least what they called it in the last one, all that often anymore. But we used to play the shit out of battle mode, and then we just kind of stopped. KOTM says, why was Twisted Metal 1 the only game to have a cockpit view? Because we wanted the texture space to make the game in general look better. And since nobody really played in the cockpit view, we said we can take that very expensive texture map space and put it into making Twisted Metal 2 look visually better across the board. And so that's what we did. George, hello, buddy. He says, I think it was Super Chat. He says, hello, being a Cult Calypso, I can say Battle Royale and Twisted is Electric Cage. Already been done was my favorite game mode. Oh, yeah, we had absolutely. We had Last Man Standing. We also had Electric Cage, which, if you don't know, all the cars were in this moving area that it was almost like Fortnite, right? It was or PUBG. It was this area that moved around the map, and if you got outside of it for too long, you blew up, and then you were out of the match. Yeah, you're not wrong. It's actually a good point, George. Thank you for that very generous super chat. I appreciate it, buddy. And of course, thank you for being a member for as long as you have. Thanks, sir. Battle mode is great, but it will always be seen as secondary, says Radic. Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the truth. Hello, Cheetah Man. I remember how awesome the promo was for Nuke mode. Dude, I mean, that's another thing. It's like I loved Nuke mode in Twisted 2012. There was a really terrible bug that we never got around to fixing. And it really fucked Nuke mode. But Nuke mode was awesome. And it just never got played. And, you know, everybody just inevitably, like they always do, went to Team Deathmatch. And, you know, we had problems with getting people connected. But I'm absolutely with you on that. I agree with you. Nuke mode was the shit. It was the shit. We'll talk about Returnal in just a second, Dead or X. If Pocket Man says, Jaffe, if Twisted becomes like Hot Wheels, can the game be viable? I don't know what that means. Hot Wheels is a great racing game, and racing games as a niche are still very viable. But so if you're saying if they put it on a track, could it become let's put it this way. I think Twisted Metal has a higher percentage chance of success if they turn it into Mario Kart or Jack X or whatever. I think putting them on a track and giving them weapons and having a battle mode for the old school fans is probably the smartest thing they could do, unless they've just got a brilliant idea. It'll piss off the hardcore fans, but frankly, if the only people that care about this game coming out are the hardcore fans, you're fucked anyway because there aren't enough of them. Gravity, thank you, buddy, for the super chat. I appreciate it. He says, Jaffe, do you design the player's abilities to handle the game's challenges or design the challenges to engage the player's abilities? Good question. It totally depends on where you're at in production. You start usually with one thing motivating you, and then you say, okay, what would a character need to be able to do if I want the game to be this? Or you start with like, oh, it'd be really cool to do a game. I really like the mechanics of shooting bows and arrows in video games. And I think here's 4 or 5 things we could do to that mechanic to really make it fresh and interesting. Okay, so if that's what we're letting the player do, what kind of scenarios could exist that would be compelling? So it really, really depends. Oh, I love the chopper in the game as well, man, but I know it probably wasn't what a lot of people wanted. 420, my dudes, thank you for the super chat, buddy. He says, wish I could play PS3 TM online still. I do as well. I was out the other night walking the dog, and for some reason I got this impulse to play Calling All Cars. I was like, I want to play that again. It needed another 3 months in the oven to add some defense and make it stickier, but that could have been. I mean, it was well reviewed. It just, you know, the audience didn't want it. It looked like a little kid's game. But boy, you know, I'd love to be able to play those again. It's, you know, you never know. I mean, I think you can if you go through a bunch of hoops, but I don't want to go through those hoops. Piotrek says, thank you, buddy. He says, it will be great in PSVR2. Vehicles are great in VR. Oh, I don't know, man. I mean, I'm sure they got a plan for something. And if it's a racing game, you're probably absolutely right. But here's the reason so far games like Gran Turismo and Drive Club and Wipeout work brilliantly is that you're on a track and you know where you're always meant to be looking. And yeah, you can do this, but now throw in the car combat of Twisted Metal. And this is a car. Well, let's take this. This is the Stizzy pin. And you're going up and you're like, "Rrr, rrr," somebody rams you. I mean, come on, man. You are going to puke your fucking guts out unless they make it like third person and they're like, okay, it's going to be in VR, but it's not POV. You can go into POV mode and lose your fucking cookies, but it's designed to be played in VR so you can look around and you have the haptics and all this shit, but on the headset, the haptics. But it's not a POV game. I mean, again, unless they put it on a track, then I think they're, I think then we're into a different conversation, which is great. Anyway, speaking of PSVR2, so that's coming out this week. I made my peace with it. The title of this is I made my peace with PSVR2. What does that mean, Chaffee? Well, so the reviews have come out, and One Winged Angel says that would be redefining purge and play. That's right. So what it means is this: the reviews have come out, the technology, no one is surprised by it. Everyone's raving about the tech. It's great fucking tech. But what I was originally holding off for was I was looking at all the games and I was saying they look fine, and I'm sure they run better than anything else on PlayStation VR 2. But as a guy who's played a lot of VR, they just kind of look like more of the same, right? I know reviewers didn't play Gran Turismo and Village, but I have played Resident Evil from start to finish in VR, and I'm pretty sure Village is going to be similar. Granted, you have more fidelity of motion in the hands. I'm not saying I'm not knocking it. I'm just saying that nothing that they showed, and if you're listening to the show, I'm putting the games on screen or a bunch of them. They just look like stuff that I'm already playing on my MetaQuest 2 or that I played on PSVR 1. And I'm just like, okay. And in that, I think I'm like, so at first I was like, I'm going to hold off. And I'm still going to hold off. But I think when I say I've made peace with it is, I think AR is very different. AR, I think, is going to be a game changer. I think whether it's successful or not, it is going to bring experiences to people that they really aren't used to having. This is like, what you're getting. It's just really fucking good. And I think in that, when I approach PSVR 2 that way, I think I go, okay, that's kind of cool. I'm interested in that, but I know it's not going to get used a lot. And I know there'll be a couple of games that I love for it, but it's mostly going to be a dust collector, except every now and then. And in that, I'm like, okay, I can live with that. I'll probably pick it up when a really compelling game, comes out. Absolutely. But the idea, though, somebody said in the chat, who was it who said that Ghost of Tsushima 2 a VR mode, right? So we talked about, well, I'll get to this. This is a dumb comment, Jeeves. I love you, but it's a dumb fucking comment. We talked about this back when PSVR 2 was announced. There were some weirdly phrased quotes from executives suggesting that you were going to start to be able to play more of the traditional Sony games from a third person in VR. And I haven't done it, but if you've played the mods, you can go online and get a mod that lets you play Horizon, the first one, in VR, and God of War, I think, 2018 in VR. And I haven't played it yet, but that's more immersive anyway to me. I don't need to be in the eyes of Kratos or Jinskai or any of these characters. Having it more like I'm looking at an action figure. And I also can look around, and I also have this great adventure that's made for both flat screens and VR screens. I'm in, but that's not what's on display here. And so, I've already done the VR stuff of like Horizon, like, whoa, I'm actually climbing the mountain. I've done it. I'm not knocking it, by the way. I think if you've played VR and it's a thing that you love that gets you excited, this sounds like the best you can get. But for me, I'm going to need something like Tsushima 2 with the VR mode, or I'm going to need a Splinter team to break off and make a third-person Tsushima game that's not just about, look, you're in VR, but a good fucking game. I loved Astrobot. Astrobot was fucking great in VR, but after a while, it was just more of the same. There were a few moments where it was like, oh, I've never had to look for coins like this before. But even, I played recently Star Wars. JoJo was telling me Star Wars Squadrons in VR was amazing. So I played that in VR and it was very, very cool. And then I was like, okay, after about 30 minutes that wore off and I was like, oh, it's too much trouble. I'll just play it on a flat screen. But that's me. Your mileage will vary. I don't think this is going to do all that well, though. I don't think it's going to do all that well, but we will see. Speaking of VR, look at this. Now, this is not going to do well at all, but this is pretty cool. This is a new VR headset. It'll cost you $1,000, but their big sex part is that they basically scan your face and they custom build the VR headset to fit your face perfectly. So it's the most comfortable VR headset you can buy. But ultimately, so what? It's still the same shit. It's still the same shit. Look at this though. Look, somebody earlier was talking about HoloLens. Jeeves says HoloLens was canceled for a reason. Come on, man. Give it a chance. It was a $3,000 thing that was made for service industries and mechanical engineering industries and whatnot. It was not meant to. Come on. You can't judge AR that way. Let me fucking tell you something. The minute you can take a pair of glasses and you're driving your car, even if you don't have, God damn it, Jaffe. Even if you don't have, I don't know what I was going to say, but the minute you can take a pair of glasses and you're driving your car, even if you don't need glasses for prescription, and you put them on and suddenly you're seeing the map of where you're going in your car. And it's like, take this turn, go over here. Are you out of your fucking mind? The minute you can go into a goddamn grocery store and items on the shelf, you get discounts for if you actually see them and you go, boop, I'll take that discount, 20% off. This will change everything. And this is coming. Augmented reality has not stalled. We don't have the tech yet. We don't have the tech yet to put that power in this and ultimately a contact lens. But we will. We don't have the power to do it yet. Apple's coming out with their thing. They're saying it's mixed reality. They're going to charge about $3,000 for it. Everyone who's seen it, one of the guys says it's going to be the Macintosh moment. If you remember that, it was like it changed everything. It was the first time there was a graphical user interface that was released to the world that you could have if you weren't already working in the tech industry. And it changed everything. That's what gave birth to Windows. These people who have seen the Apple mixed reality headset say this is that. Now, who knows if it's true? I don't fucking know. But the idea of augmented reality, let's put it this way. Let's put it this way. If I can pitch you all the stuff you could do in AR, if it could be affordable and if it could work well and not give you headaches and all that, okay? I could make a list of 1,000 things that you can't do now that you could do with that. If I make you a list of what you can do at a gameplay level in VR that you can't do on a flat screen, I could give you nothing. I could give you nothing. Everything you can do in VR, 95% of it, probably more, you can do on a flat screen and you won't be missing anything except just the sense of immersion, which wears off. I can make a set of singles bars, and you go in, and by going in, you agree to the policy. And the policy is everybody in the bar, whoever you look at, you give a rating to, and they give a rating to you if they've looked at you. And you know who to approach because it's like, she's giving me an 8 out of 10. Oh shit, she thinks I'm a 2. It sounds terrible, but it sounds great. There's a million things that you can fucking do with AR that you can't do with the VR. So I'm just saying that it's easy to see how that's going to be the future, but it's going to be a while. It's going to be a while just because the tech's not there yet, but it's getting there. It's getting there. Ravno says, I'm all for new things, but that's a way to push more ads in your face? Well, that's everything. You can pay to turn them off or not subscribe to certain things that, give you ads. I don't fucking know. Yeah, I'm with you. Lucas says, PSVR1 gave me some of the most amazing, memorable gaming experiences. I'm with you, but I don't think those are repeatable for me. Like, for me, playing Resident Evil 7, the whatever it was on VR before Village was insane. Was fucking insane. I loved it. But now I'm over it. But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you're still excited about it. Yeah, I agree. 7 was insane. Yorch, thank you for the super chat again, buddy. Very generous today. Always generous, actually. Thank you, sir. He says, look, Jaffe, I've always felt your games feel like they're designed from a kit of core mechanics, satisfying to rinse and repeat like a toy, with possibility to master, which is very complex, satisfying, yet very satisfying. No. Yes, no. I don't know. So the second part, I would say no. The possibility to master, which is complex yet satisfying. I'm not that good of a designer that I could sit down and logically know how to create easy to pick up, hard to master. I'm glad that was the result. And I was always working with the teams to pack in enough content in hopes that some of the mechanics we put in could lead to that. But I never consciously had the ability to go, or I never had the ability to consciously go, these 4 mechanics will yield that result. I just threw a bunch of fucking spaghetti at the wall and said the ones that are going to work, and the ones that aren't, it's not going to hurt the game if we put them in there. Sometimes it did, though. But I definitely was very much gameplay first. I was not one of these guys, like we had this conversation on the stream a couple of months back about Ragnarok. And I remember I was talking to Shannon, who produced 2018 and produced all the God of Wars in Santa Monica. And I was like, it's weird. She's asking what I thought about Ragnarok. And I said, it's really good. It's incredibly made. I said, it's slow for me. I would have cut out big chunks of it to move it along. And she was like, she said, I think. So she's not like giving any kind of insider news, but the gist of what she was saying was she's like, I don't think Santa Monica right now, I think they're driven by story first. And if the story demands it, that is what they're slaves to, which is fine. They clearly are selling a boatload of product. But for me, I was always about the game first, which meant if it was boring and we had to cut an entire section and it didn't make any sense and we made it make sense by a voiceover, fuck it, do that. Because the last thing I want to do is bore players. So that would be my answer. Thank you for the super chat, but I appreciate it. Okay. What do we got? We got ourselves a couple super chats, or these are members. Thank you, buddy. Luca, 17 months. Thanks, man. He says, hey, being immersed is not enough. Is that why everyone is playing their games on 32-inch 720p screens? It is, first off, I don't understand. The second sentence is sarcastic, correct? Which is you're saying most people aren't playing on 32-inch 720p screens. So here's what I will tell you, Luca. I'm sure that everyone's level of susceptibility to this stuff is different. All I can tell you is my susceptibility is to things like IMAX or giant TVs. Or is that immersive? Yes, for about 20 minutes. And then you're at the mercy of the product. Okay. So there have been movies that I have watched on my phone that have become some of my favorite movies of all time. And there have been movies I've gone to the theater and done all the bells and whistles and had the seats moving and all this shit, but it was kind of a boring movie and it was like, it's all right. It's all right. So immersion in gameplay to me, I'm more immersed in a good game of Hearthstone or Marvel Snap or Elden Ring because my brain is immersed going, what do I do next? And if I want to kill this monster, maybe I need to do these 3 things. And where's the map saying I should go? That's immersion. Immersion in space, no one can touch VR. The sense of place is brilliant. I remember when I first got VR the first MetaQuest, which was wireless. And I was in my living room and I was playing that Space Pirate game. And if you haven't played it, it all takes place on this platform. Like, I think it's on a skyscraper. And there's this big, not it's big, there's like a one-man ship, almost like a Obi-Wan ship that he flew around in the prequels. And because it's room-based VR, I could walk to the ship. I didn't even start the game. I just walked to the ship, looked under it. You know, I looked inside the cockpit. It was real. The sense of immersion was amazing. But that, for me, wears off. And when that wears off, you're left with the game. And you're left with, it's kind of a convenience and it's uncomfortable and you got to charge it up and this and that and the other. And for me, it was never enough after the novelty wore off to merit the headaches that came with it for me, is what I would say. But, you know, everyone's different. And I'm glad you are excited. That's great. Carlos, been a member for 18 months. Thank you, sir. You know, I appreciate it. He says, saw some podcasts. They said they didn't like your original ending of God of War, where Kratos becomes... Kratos did not become one of the three wise men. That drives me batshit. That was not what it was. And, you know, I've gotten old enough where I'm almost to the point that I'm done trying to correct people that get my shit wrong. Kratos was never going to become one of the three wise men. If you're too, not you, Carlos, I know what you're saying, but if these guys are too fucking lazy to do the research, think about it. People don't demand things. At least, like, you know, you listen to the Collins podcast, you listen to Greg Miller's podcast. At the end, they're like, hey, tell us what we got wrong. Accept it. You're going to get some things wrong, but Jesus Christ, man, if your audience doesn't give a fuck about you doing the research, that's never what I said. Kratos never was going to become one of the three fucking kings. He was going to become fucking the Grim Reaper. Come on now. I don't know. Drives me batshit, man. Drives me batshit. But I'm trying to stay away. Returnal. What I was going to say about Returnal was just that, you know, it's out on PC. My understanding is it's performing really poorly compared to the only, you know, Sony's recent games on PC seem to be performing worse than their original ones. So like Uncharted, Honor Among Thieves did not do that well. And now Returnal, I think, has a max player of like 6,000 people, but it's a great fucking game. And I'll tell you something else about it that actually, I don't think I have the rig to run it, but I don't know if I can play Returnal on my PS5 with the mouse, but I've heard people saying, oh my fucking God, man, playing that game with a mouse changes everything. And I loved Returnal. I just wasn't very good at it. But if I can play it on a mouse with my PS5, I'm going to try it. So I love the game, and I'm glad that it is apparently a really great port over on the PC. Absolutely. What do you mean calm down, Eddie J? I'm totally calm. Totally calm. No, Doug says fuck procedurally generated levels as it relates to Returnal. Returnal's great. Alexa, stop. Returnal's a fucking knees bees great game. Wonderful fucking game. I know what you mean about procedural. I don't like a lot of that shit either. In this case, I'm going to save these for tomorrow's show. I have a lot more news. We've been away from each other for a while, fellas. I don't like it. I got to talk to you guys about AI tomorrow, though. There's some amazing stuff happening with AI-created video games. That is fucking crazy. The world is changing, and it's delightful. I also want to push back on these people that are pushing back on me about ancient apocalypse. Come on now. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. But anyway, tonight or tomorrow, here's what I want to show you. There's a bunch of stuff that's out from IGN's FanFest. Tons of great new trailers have dropped, along with a 15-minute leak of Atomic Heart, along with this really great 80 rapid-fire questions about the RE4 remake from the guys who made RE4. I am going to, tonight or tomorrow, smoke some dope, get some pizza, and stream just watching and responding to a bunch of fucking trailers. So I'll let you know on Twitter if it's tonight or if it's tomorrow, but it's going to be happening in the next 48 hours. Hopefully you'll join me. Rob, as for the AI codes, let me just tell you something, man. the stuff that I'm seeing, I'll share it with you if I talk to you tonight. If not, I'll put it on tomorrow's show. But it's all I will tell you is when I was in college, I wrote a screenplay, and it opened with this, video game designers were celebrities. They were like the big, movie directors of the day. And to show the guy he wasn't the star of the show, but he was like an old guy who was like been successful at it for a long time. The way they made video games, this was set like 100 years in the future, was he would literally just sit and talk to his computer and say, I want a waterfall here, and I want this, and I want this, and I want this. And it just worked. You got to see what Roblox is doing. You got to see how I built. I mean, this isn't as dramatic as it sounds. The Roblox thing is, but I can build. There's a Mario Chat GPT where you can literally use text. You can literally use text to design a Mario level. Are you out of your fucking mind? We're getting to the point that it's not going to be, I need to learn Unity. It's going to be who's got the best ideas and who can execute them the best with these new set of tools. It's like learning to play guitar at this point. It democratizes the whole fucking thing. 10 years, that's where we're going to be. It's amazing stuff. We'll talk about that, and I'll show you some examples tomorrow. In the meantime, thank you to the new members. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for everybody for joining and hanging out and spending some time on the Gabbin' and the Games today for Sunday. I will be back tomorrow with another Gabbin' and Games or an I Love the Weird or videos or something. And then stay tuned on Twitter, Discord about the trailer show coming up tonight or tomorrow. Okay. In the meantime, guys, be well, be safe, be good, blah, 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 blah. See you soon. Bye, everybody.